Stem cells can divide indefinitely to produce new, fresh cells. However, our stem cells also produce somatic cells. And these somatic cells, every time they divide, their telomeres become a little bit shorter. And then they divide again, and the telomeres become shorter. And then eventually, the somatic cells will divide and the telomeres will become so short that the somatic cell cannot divide anymore and it will become a senescent cell, which is a post-mitotic, non-dividing cell. So these senescent cells just sit around and accumulate cellular injury. However, even though shortened telomeres can lead to the formation of senescent cells, there's actually a lot of different factors that cause formation and accumulation of senescent cells. Another common factor is DNA damage. If a cell accumulates enough DNA damage, it will form a senescent cell. Also, epigenetic changes, changes in proteostasis, essentially the integrity of protein structures inside the cell, mitochondrial dysfunction. There's lots of different factors that can lead to the formation of these senescent cells, which are non-dividing cells. And a key difference between a young person versus an old person is an old person has accumulated many senescent cells which just sit around and accumulate cellular injury. However, a young person, they have a lot of freshly somatic cells that are dividing, producing new fresh somatic cells made up of new fresh cellular components. And that's a key hallmark of youth versus aged tissue. So many people believe that aging is due to inevitable wear and tear within cells, and the accumulation of senescent cells is due to inevitable wear and tear and cellular injury, leading to accumulation of senescent cells. However, I disagree with this. If you take any person and you look at all their somatic cells came from their germ cells. And those germ cells came from their mom's germ cells, which came from her mom's germ cells, which came from her mom's germ cells, and etc. And if you think about it, there is a 1 billion year lineage of fully functioning cells that have occurred on Earth. And really, life on Earth has even been more than a billion years. So there is a more than 1 billion year long lineage of fully functioning dividing cells that have not accumulated wear and tear, that have not accumulated cellular injury. So, why does this occur? Well, I believe this is because aging is not due to wear and tear, rather, it's due to regulation. All these factors that lead to the accumulation of senescent cells, all these factors are regulated. The shortening of telomeres, that's a regulated process. DNA damage is a regulated process. The onset of insults that lead to DNA damage and the repair of DNA damage and the removal of cells that have accumulated DNA damage, that's all regulated. All these factors that lead to aging are regulated. Evidence for this is the Hydra. The Hydra is an essentially immortal jellyfish. So why does this jellyfish, why is it essentially immortal? Well, it has these stem cells that have genetic regulation that allows it to produce new, fresh cells over and over again. Also, there's genetic regulation that allows for robust DNA repair within the cells. And if a cell accumulates enough cellular injury or DNA damage, there's proper, appropriate regulation that allows the removal of those damaged cells. So therefore, genetic regulation allows for the Hydra to essentially be immortal. And it's my belief, if you think of whatever you believe is the cause of aging, and then you ask, why does that occur? And then you ask deeper, why does that then occur? And then you ask, why did that occur? I really do believe at the root of it, it comes to stem cells. And if we have stem cells that can produce new, young, fresh cells indefinitely, I believe that can prolong lifespan. We also know we have a 5,000-year-old tree that is still producing new fresh cells. Why hasn't it just accumulated enough wear and tear within a 5,000-year period? Well, it's still able to produce new fresh cells due to genetic regulation. So how can we leverage our understanding of aging? Well, we know within our cells we have DNA, and the DNA forms RNA, and this RNA forms proteins, and we know these proteins regulate biochemistry. However, we have technology with lipid nanoparticles and viral vectors that can allow the delivery of cargo within cells. So, what can we deliver? Well, one, we can deliver CRISPR, which can change DNA, it can change your DNA sequences. Also, we can deliver plasmids, which add brand new DNA to form new mRNA to produce new proteins that can regulate biochemistry. We can also deliver transcription factors, which can alter the expression of different DNA sequences. We can deliver oligonucleotides, which go and suppress and turn off RNA that is forming bad proteins. So, therefore, we can essentially suppress certain genes. We can also deliver mRNA, as we've seen with the mRNA vaccines, and these mRNA vaccines can be delivered to then express any protein we want to cause any biochemical change we want within the cell. We can also directly deliver proteins to change biochemistry, or we can inject monoclonal antibodies to regulate biochemistry within the blood and serum. So, therefore, all of these tools, all this biotechnology can effectively regulate biochemistry within the cell. So, we have the technology right now to take a person's blood and analyze the blood using artificial intelligence and machine learning to analyze the epigenome, the genome, the transcriptome, all the mRNA, and the proteome. We're able to analyze this patient's biology under machine learning to then offer very personalized recommendations of what we can do, what we can give to modify and essentially fully regulate and control the biochemistry occurring within your cells. Find your personalized omics and then discover personalized therapeutics that we can give to fully optimize and regulate your biochemistry in order to optimize lifespan. Something that many people do not understand is that evolution selected for genes that optimize sexual reproduction at the cost of longevity. For example, let's say this person developed a mutation that allows for pro-clotting, that increases the rate of clotting. So that pro-clotting gene protected them from bleeding to death as a child. So that pro-clotting gene increased their chance of surviving to adulthood to then reproduce. However, now as a 70-year-old, they're developing clots leading to heart attack and stroke. Maybe this person developed a gene that is pro-inflammation, protecting them from infection as a child, but now they're living with chronic inflammation. Maybe this person developed a gene that is pro-salt retention. It makes their kidneys retain salt, so that helps them from a scarcity environment. However, now it leads to hypertension. And also, there are other genes, I believe, that optimize and accelerate the rate of cell growth. So, therefore, they have lots of new, fresh cells that optimize fitness and reproduction at the cost of longevity. So, therefore, theoretically, mimicking an ancestral lifestyle would theoretically optimize sexual reproduction at the cost of longevity. This is a theme and concept that's so common in evolution, it's called antagonistic pleiotropy. So, unfortunately, some people are just very unlucky. They just happen to get all the wrong genes, maybe genes that are pro-clotting, pro-inflammation, and pro-elevated LD, and that's why some people in a population die of a heart attack in their 50s. Some people get unlucky combinations of genes, and therefore, theoretically, medications can modulate biochemistry and can absolutely increase lifespan. However, I believe with these personalized omics, we're able to regulate biochemistry to optimize lifespan. We know there are longevity genes, so personally, I believe by analyzing a person's blood under machine learning and AI, we will one day be able to offer personalized omic therapies to optimize and fully regulate and control biochemistry in order to optimize lifespan. I really do believe the story of biology is regulating chemistry in order to tame the physics that allows the stochastic deterioration of matter and cells that make up biology. In biology, it's usually pathological dysregulation that facilitates the onset of chronic disease. And therefore, dysregulation that leads to chronic disease can then be regulated with personalized omics as long as we continue to research these different topics in medicine.